So quick review from last chapter. What is the converse sentence? Yes. When you switch the order. So remember we learned the 4 if-then sentences from the last section? Okay, we're going to write the converse of those 4. So what is well, let's back up. On those 4 sentences, what did they all start with in the last section? If parallel lines. So all of these are going to end with
If parallel lines.
Then parallel lines. So all of these sentences are proving that 2 lines are parallel. So give me one of them right now. If what? Converse of one of the 4 if-then sentences. We know they're going to end with then parallel lines. You told me that. Yes?
If alternate interior angles
Uh-huh. What are the other 4 angle types? If corresponding and alternate exterior. Okay? Most of these are going to be the same. Which one is going to be different? I heard both of these. Okay, well, all of you agreed that this one was congruent. So the alternate exterior and alternate interior have to be congruent. Which of the other 2 angles here also are going to be congruent? The corresponding. The only ones that are supplementary are the consecutive interior ones. So these are all just the converse sentences from the last section. In the last section, I told you had parallel lines, so you were able to say all of these properties were true, that the alternate interior, the consecutive, the alternate exterior were all congruent, and that the consecutive interior are supplementary. But now we're going the opposite direction. You don't know if the lines are parallel, but you're going to have some angle properties, and you're going to be able to tell if they are parallel or if they aren't. So we're going to go through some examples, and then we'll get to the homework. But we're going to be using these as our reasons. All right, so looking at this picture, if I told you that 1 is congruent to 9, what would we be able to say? Yep. They are consecutive. We're going to, or not consecutive. What are they? They're corresponding. We're going to use that, but that's not what we can put after the word then. What can we conclude if I told you that 1 is congruent to 9? Which lines are parallel? I agree that we're going to say 2 things are parallel. What are the 2 lines that are parallel because of that? Why isn't it M with N? Yeah, the angles aren't even touching N. Has nothing to do with line N, right? So 1 congruent to 9 tells you that A is parallel to B. So what reason from the previous slide would we actually be using? If corresponding angles are congruent, then parallel lines. Okay, do not forget to tell me what characteristic those angles have. It's one of the most common mistakes on this chapter test is kids don't put the congruent or supplementary. I need that there. Okay, let's look at this one. If 2 is congruent to 7, can we say anything? Do we have any parallel lines? Maybe. Anyone have a more definite answer? 2 and 7. What line can we completely ignore? B. So we're not even looking down here. Okay, so you can essentially cover it up with your hand. If you're looking just up there at those green angles, what kind of angles are they? Okay, they're acute, yes, but that's not what I'm talking about. They're alternate interior angles. What do they have to be, congruent or supplementary? They have to be congruent. Are they congruent? Yeah, that's what it says right here. 2 is congruent to 7. So do we have parallel lines?
Yeah.
Okay. M parallel to N. What reason? If angles congruent, thank you, and parallel lines. Okay, let's try the last one. If I told you that 3 is the same thing as 9, do we have parallel lines? Talk to me, what you thinking?
Yes.
How come? Don't be afraid to be wrong. We learn a lot from mistakes, yeah. Okay, I agree with that train of thought that they would be corresponding angles because they're both in the upper left corner of their group of angles, right? Okay. In order to be one of the 4 sentences, okay, they would have to share a transversal. So let me talk about the fact that these 2 lines right here create angle 3. So if I write those 2 down here, and angle 3 is right here, and then looking at angle 9, which would look like this, essentially those are the 2 angles we're talking about, right? Now those 2 intersections of lines, could I turn one of them and still have 3 and 9 be the same measure? So I could take these 2 lines right here and rotate them like this. And 3 and 9 are the same still, right? And if I have them intersect again, do we have parallel lines? No, but we still have 3 and 9 congruent, right? So can we say that we have parallel lines here for sure? No, we can't. And nothing. Okay, 2 angles have to share a transversal. They have to be on a line together. Okay, so when we looked at 2 and 7 being the same, they were on line A together. That transversal in between the 2 lines. Questions on that? Okay, let's try 3 more examples. So we don't know if the 2 red lines are parallel or not, but we want to make them parallel using one of the 4 sentences. Okay, so looking at those 2 angles where the algebra is placed, what if-then sentence would we need to work with? What would go here? Okay, so this is the why piece of it. Your if-then sentence, your reasoning on how you're going to set this algebra up. So right there it tells you that if those 2 angles are equal to each other, then we know the red lines are parallel. So what equation would you set up? Okay, so we'll solve this. And you have both pieces of the problem. We have our why it works, and then we have the x value that would actually make them equal. What if-then sentence would we have to use here? corresponding angles are then parallel lines. So we have to set this up so that this sentence is true. What would we write? Last one. These are consecutive interior. Okay, they're on the interior of those two red lines and they're on the same side. So if consecutive interior angles are okay, so how does this one get set up? Yep, we have to add them together and set them equal to 180. So make sure that you're using supplementary or congruent in the proper way. Consecutive interior are the only ones that end up being equal to 180, not equal to each other. Questions on using those if-then sentences? I'm not concerned about your algebra skills. So that's why I sped through that part of it. But make sure you know how to set them up, whether they're equal to each other or equal to 180. Questions?